Again, this is by far the longest session. How many parts of this session have we been in? 13. Wow. Everyone's using this place as a launch pad for the next step of their lives. Alma will apparently be leaving to help out our family's traditional restaurant, Machina, once their preparations are in order. Yeah, I knew Machina would be leeching off Alma's family. Sachi and Mitru are going to be transferring together to a boarding school. The principal recommended. However, even if we all end up leaving this place behind, we made plans to periodically meet up again. The 6 of us may have been born in different places, but in a way, we all feel as if we grow up here. Although we regained our familiar daily life, little by little things are starting to change. And Yumiko certainly no exception. After dramatically transforming her world, she's trying to adapt herself to a whole new routine. Thanks for helping me with breakfast. Eating my meals around this table with Yumiko already feels completely natural. Today we got grilled salmon and boiled greens in a soy sauce that I made, and soup and rice courtesy of Yumiko. Yeah, looks like you've gotten the hang of miso soup now. Why would I lie now? It really is good. Her eyes full of relief, Yumiko favors me with a sincere smile. It's 11 now. This is by far the longest session. Since we started living together in my room, the girls gradually eased her way into cooking. First, she was burning pans more often than cooking food, but under the strict tutelage of Madame Amen, she's finally learned how to make miso and other simple soups. You're learning boiled food next, right? Amen was pretty enthusiastic. Sounds like she enjoys teaching you. Well, the two of them have finally gotten friendly enough to use each other's first names, so I guess that lingering tinge of jealousy isn't anything to be that worried about. Amen's probably just playing around for the most part, but since I'm clearly part of the issue, I can't exactly stick my head in either way. Seeking a change of subject, I reach out for my rice bowl. Looks like you got the rice just right too. When I look across the table again to praise Yumiko, I find her chopstick paws hesitantly in midair. What's wrong? You're not eating. I call out to her again. She starts a little, then smiles. Morning light flows in softly through the window. The faintly touch of sun on her skin makes Yumiko's smile seem almost eerily gentle. Before, Yumiko was always alone. The girl absolutely didn't choose that solitude. She always longed to have someone at her side, and many times she tried to convince herself there would be. Those hopes were betrayed again and again. Yumiko plunged herself into despair, gave up on connection with others, and hid herself from the world. After she came to the storm, her walls slowly began to crumble. Yumiko warmed up to her classmates. She fell in love with me, and her solitude finally came to an end. Considering the way she used to be, it's not surprising she'd find all this a little hard to believe. Yeah, I'm happy for you, Yumiko. That smile coming from the heart. Yumiko looks genuinely content, like someone who's gotten everything they ever wanted. When the girl talks about how happy she is, sometimes I see a slight shadow fall across her face. And although it's just speculation on my part, I think I know why. Though our Sherpa, Michigaki lost everything he had built in a single day. Tripped up by the willful daughter he wanted to manipulate like a puppet, the man vanished in defeat. The supremely arrogant emperor who stepped out of the car that day left a crushed and broken man. Those deeply contrasting images are still crystal clear in my memory. And for Yumiko, his daughter, at that moment must have felt like must have left a far strong impression. There wasn't just hatred in her eyes, but just as she quietly watched her father disappear, I'm sure many complex emotions were running through her mind. Following that instance, Michigaki essentially abandoned both his personal and professional life. The mass media he previously muscled through force briefly latched onto the dramatic overthrown tyrant storyline, but in time their interest died out. By now, the man's already becoming part of the past. Michigaki still got a new, nearly 10% stock in the group, along with a new honorary position, as he shouldn't exactly be starving. Still, he's been laying low to the point that it's almost unsettling. Sometimes I can't help wondering if he's lurking in the shadows somewhere, steadily plotting revenge and working toward a comeback. That hypothesis doesn't really stand up to scrutiny. I couldn't see any hint of spirit in the hollowed-out shell of a man who climbed back into his car that day. And judging from the way you watched him go, Yumiko probably sensed something similar. Her father had been the focus of all her hatred for years. He was the ruthless creature who chained her down. But under his armor, he was just one incredible frail human being, every bit as weak as Yumiko herself once was. Watching her father stripped naked and chased from his place in the world, the girl no doubt felt a painful twinge of recognition and empathy. To survive, to carve out her own place in the world, there was no choice but to overthrow him. But that doesn't mean it left an entirely pleasant taste in her mouth. Yumiko. Again, there's the slight hint of listlessness in her expression. Even when Yumiko's acting cheerful, I can't help picking out the slight sign of fraying at the seams. You keep stopping with your chopsticks. I've been refraining from asking Yumiko about this. She obviously hasn't even began to sort out her own feelings yet. I'll be cruel to make her dwell on it even further. Alright, I know what you're thinking about. Moving smoothly around the table, I push her down to the floor. We got interrupted halfway through, didn't we? Maybe you wanted something like this. So I cover it up with a white lie. Yumiko, for her past, accepts that lie. Her words are hesitant, but her fingers twine through mine. As if to request the next step, her entire palm squirms currently in my grasp. Your hands seem to have a different opinion. I'm not sure who to believe. Since she wasn't really rejecting me, I leaned down and pressed my lips against hers. Pretending not to notice the wound on each other's backs, we run our hands across the undamaged surface alone, seeking comfort. I know we'll have to treat those wounds eventually, but right now, we need time, we need this. Yumiko hasn't had a real peace for practically her entire life. At the very least, I want to give her a chance to think. Suddenly, screw electronic music fills the air. We stop and smile shrilly at each other. One more brief peck at my lips. Yumiko pulls herself out from under me. She flips open her bleeding cell phone and glances at the screen. After letting me know that, she picks herself up off the floor and presses the answer button.
はい。先日はありがとうございました。
Yumiko recently hired a lawyer to sort through the legal issues involved with our situation. He's also helping make arrangements for making the Sakaki family property now that Nishiki's all but fallen off the face of the earth. Family affairs are understandably chaotic at the moment, so it's a lot for Yumiko to handle on her own. Still, she's been diligent negotiating, selling off what needs to be sold, trying to keep things from falling apart. I assume this cell phone call is another update on their progress. But that peaceful conversation was expecting changes dramatically with a small cry of surprise from Yumiko. Not just the tone of her voice, her calm look on her face gives her way too grim a severe expression. More than a little concerned, I picked myself off the ground and watched.
はい。わかりました。では明日いらした時に詳しく。はい。
After hanging up the phone, Yumiko gazes down at the screen, disbelief, not speaking a word. Did something happen? This time I find myself unable to bite my tongue. Yumiko, her face still blank, which finally turns to my face. There's nothing in the phrase that suggests Yumiko is talking about a relative, but there's only one person that person she refers to that way.
あの人が私にすべて譲渡したそうよ。
Everything? Confusion in her eyes, Yumiko nods
あ
toward
の
me.
人の持っていたすべての株式を私に譲渡したって。
Michikaki did? Yumiko doesn't respond. She just gazed intently down at her phone, complex emotions flittering across her face, almost as if the man in question was standing in front of her. It's the same expression that was on her face 2 months ago as she watched her father disappear, as expression of loneliness, anger, and profound sorrow. 3 years later. Even though we're in 2017, this isn't 2000. Oh boy, not this time. Oh boy. And coming, moving my head down here. Muted murmur of television echoes through the spacious room. There's no other sound to be heard. Half submerged in a plush sofa, I abruptly open my eyes at the sound of a voice on the television. It's a very familiar voice, one I've been hearing on a daily basis for a long time now. I must have nodded off halfway through. I move my eyes back to the enormous LCD screen mounted on the wall. Yumiko, wearing a tailored professional suit and a resolute expression, listens carefully to her interview's questions and offers a precious response. I was pretty nostalgic dream just now. Maybe it's because I spoke with Amin on the phone the other day, but I dreamed of our time at Mihama Academy. I might mind running back over the events that turned Yumiko into the public figure she is today. With Michikachi transfer all of his stocks in the East Beach group to her, Yumiko thought long and hard about what to do with it all. She even considered selling the entire stake and donating the proceeds to charity. It was, in some sense, tainted money, and more importantly, slightly less than 10% of that company still amounted to a astronomical sum of money. Yumiko wanted to live a peaceful life on her own terms, and she knew that kind of money would change everything. But after much agonizing, she ultimately decided to accept it. And then while using her newfound wealth to attain a top-flight university, she started up her own company, one that's proven wildly successful right now. It's becoming increasingly frequent for her to appear in the media as a extraordinary young entrepreneur. As to why Yumiko voluntarily entered the same corporate world that tied her down for so long, I never asked her point blank. But I do have a feeling I got something to do with the open wounds she's been ignoring for the last 3 years. Probably the same reason she didn't sell off this house. Despite all the bad memories it holds for her, we're living here together now. I guess comes a point when evidence doesn't make you scar. Their scars ache anyways. My other cell phone begins to ring for the first time in 3 years. After carefully confirming the caller ID screen, I hit the answer button. Hey, been a while. There's a moment of silence, but in the time, many unspoken words passed between us. Although I was officially reprimanded after the incident 3 years ago, a certain influential force in Ichigai upper echelons shielded me from more serious charges and arranged for my reinstatement on the reserve. That said, I was no longer interested in returning to my previous workplace, as supporting Yumiko had become my first and foremost priority. I take my chance to formally resign. Naturally, this led to an estrangement from JB. There was one and only one thing I asked of her at the end. It was a job better suited to a detective agency than a professional of her caliber, but I asked her anyway, fully aware of my selfishness. JB accepted the strange request without a particular comment. Didn't ask why, but it felt as though she wanted to tie up the loose end herself.
3年前に頼まれてた最後のお願いについて分かったことがあるわ。
I already knew the reason she was making this phone call. Yes, that means she's found some sort of answer to the odd request I made of her. There's no longer any other reason for JP to contact me. I see. Thank you, Julia. It's alright, I still want to know. I mechanically jot down JB's in different words in a notepad that was lying nearby. As the trees outside sway in the wind, a muted sound of rustling foliage carries through the otherwise silent room. After ending the call with JB, I tuck the black cell phone away and take it out the one I normally use. The call history filled almost entirely with a single number. Clicking on it, I bring the phone to my ear. I like how it says a certain place. Yumiko and I walked leisurely down the road leading to the station. She got a lot on her plate at work right now, but the moment I called, she managed to open her schedule. Yeah, there's something I wanted to talk about. Sorry about dragging you out. Yumiko smiles happily. I haven't told her the real reason for this outing yet. There was a deliberate decision. I didn't want it to be weighing on her mind from the very start. It's a slightly off place, actually. True, now that you mention it. Yumiko glances over at me with a puzzled expression. This vague, riddle-like conversation continues as if we climb the stairs to our local train station. And also, it's too bright. Changing trains after a few stops, we make our way out of a certain Tokyo, head for the south part of the Kanto region. Colorful port cities flash by, some outside the windows. Eventually, this gives way to a peaceful-looking little valley town. A vivid shade of green starts to dominate the scenery. Yumiko grows progressively quieter. Trains heading straight for that place. Would be going there without a good reason. Yumiko's no doubt starting to realize this won't be the light-hearted outing she expected. Our destination lies in the town where Yumiko spent the loneliest years of her childhood. By the time we're heading before the building itself, her expression painfully tense. It's a large general hospital at the outskirts of sleepy country town. A hospital of two of us visited several times together. But there should be no longer be any reason for us to come here.
お母さんもいないのに。
Yumiko's mother, Sakaki Misako, quietly passed away 2 years ago. After the usual formalities with her relatives, Yumiko told me she'd never be setting foot in this town again. There were too many sad memories in this place. Just being here was painful for her. I know it's hard coming back here, but there's something we can't talk about
こ
anywhere
こでない
else.
とできない話。
Yeah. We proceed slowly through the familiar halls. After climbing the stairs, we make our way towards a private room in the very back, then come to a halt in front of the door. There's a certain person who's been visiting this place virtually every week since your mother's death. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about, right? Yumiko casts her eyes down, pursing her lips slightly. Looks as though the names come to mind. I don't know why any more than you do, but it's a fact. That person's been coming here for years, begging the hospital staff not to breathe a word of those visits to
私
anyone.
たちに知られたくないから。
I silently nodded. I know it'll be tough for you to meet him face to face after all of the sudden, Yumiko. I'm planning to go in there and ask why he's doing this. Do you think you could wait outside and listen? We can head back home now if you want, if that's what you want. I'll promise you never to bring that person up again, but if there's still a bad taste lingering in your mouth, instead of trying to forget the past, how about we look for a way to accept it? Her eyes still turned down toward the floor. Yumiko muttered shyly.
もうずっと前に気づいていたのね。私があのことをまだ引きずっていることに。
Yeah, sorry for not saying anything until now. There must be countless memories running through Yumiko's head right now. Empty childhood, her faint hopes she found, only to have it snatched away. The man who took everything away. Her crushing solitude, the artificial cage where her heart slowly began to thaw. Her first act of real residence, our escape in the end of our struggle, a confrontation with everything on the line. And the former usurper who had everything taken away from him. What does his daughter feel for him now? Hatred? Something like else entirely? I can practically see the tangled ball of conflicted emotions wriggling inside her mind. Eventually, Yumiko raises her head. Her expression is firm and determined.
私聞くわ。ここで待ってる。
I see, alright then. Nodding to Yumiko, I step forward, slowly open the door to the hospital room. The heavy sound of the wood slide across the floor, sunshine from our window floods into the hallway. I'm coming in. It's a hospital room with no occupant, dominated by an empty bed. A strong smell of a sun-faded old curtain overpowers the lingering scent of disinfectant still lingering in the air. At the side of the bed, the single man sitting in a folded chair, hands folded in front of him.
予定通りだな。さすがは軍人だけあって時間に正確だ。
Well, I'm not in that line of work anymore, but time passes quickly. Best to use it effectively, wouldn't you say?
その通りだ。時間はすぐに過ぎる。
Ichigaki smiles stiffly as the words leave his mouth. And if you guys are wondering why this whole time I've been not saying Sakaki, it's because the Sakaki Yumiko, you get what I'm trying to get. It'll be confusion between this. So I'm just going to stick with their first name basis. His face carved with wrinkles, looks like that of a much older man.
3年ぶりか。もっとも君の顔などあまり覚えてはいないがね。
I remember yours very clearly. Seems to have changed better pretty
生きがいがなく
dramatically.
なった人間など所詮はこのようなものだ。血と肉の入れ物はあってもそれを動かす意志が空っぽではただ細々と物を食い 排泄するだけのゴミでしかない。
His eyes, once gleaming with refuse ambition, are dull and sunken. His mouth droops slackly, as if his face can no longer support its own weight. There's not even a hint of the power and intensity that once defined this man. The last 4 years must have been a period of increasingly rapid decline. Sorrow seems to ooze from every pore of his body.
そんな私をここに呼んで何をしようというんだね。
Miyazaki's voice, full of self-ridicule, implies a question, here to laugh at a fallen man. I wanted to ask you something. What was driving you 3 years ago? No, what drove you for your entire adult life? Where did that ambition and greed come from? I couldn't help feeling you were lost somehow, that you might have regretted the path you took, and that's why I dragged you out here, so I can stick my nose into your business. Michigaki's response to this with a snort of amusement.
こんな非道な男にそんなことを聞いても無駄だろう。君の期待するような言葉など私が言うことはない。私から全てを奪った贖罪のつもりでそんな自己弁護を考えたのかもしれんが、シナリオとしては三流だな。出直してくるがいい。
Tell me, then why have you been retracing the footsteps of your wife and child?
どうしてそれを？
I had my superior do a little digging. You've been sighting the vicinity of this hospital and the apartments Yumiko and I rented for a while when we were on the run, and even your wife's family home. My final request of JB was an investigation to Michikaki's current whereabouts and activities since his fall from power. Michigaki spent the last few years visiting every place his wife and daughter once lived, and if so, vigorously experienced their journey. If he had his best and keep us in the dark about it, and distinguish himself in using false names. Only a person who regrets their past would do something like that. If you truly thrown everything aside, you wouldn't go out of your way to visit places with connection to your family. That's why I finally decided to ask, was that life really what you wanted, or were you just chained to it by something beyond your control? I had a feeling knowing the answer might be better than letting it all fade away miserably into the past. Michigaki heaves a heavy sigh, his sunken eyes gave at the floor for a long moment, slowly turning up to me. There's a surprisingly gentle smile on his face is the resigned expression of a beaten man.
君の上司は最後まで私の気に入らないことをするのだな。
Blame me for this one. I'm the one who asked her.
妙なことをするものだ。おせっかいにも程があるぞ。
Michigaki, who had been leaning forward in his chair like a stooped old man, apparently reclines as if to stretch his back. His face pointed up the ceiling, he lets out a very long sigh.
私が父から最初に帝王学を教わったのは何歳の時かわかるかね。
On to the next part. Come on. This is the longest session I've ever done. I want to finish this game already, so I can get back to Princess Abigail. Because we're almost finished with that too. On to the next part.